Browse through the news and you'll see many headlines about mental health. Are you able to find a common thread among all these headlines? That's right, they all mention youth and their mental health. It's great that there has been more conversation about mental health in Singapore, but this discussion tends to leave out one important group of people: the elderly, people above the age of 65. Why is there a need to include the elderly in national conversations on mental health? Singapore is facing an aging population. Within the next year, the number of people above the age of 65 will equal those under the age of 15 for the first time in history. The elderly are also estimated to make up a third of Singapore's population by 2030. However, the elderly have not been doing so well. Unfortunately, suicide cases among the elderly reached a new peak last year. Mental illnesses like depression are often cited to be closely linked to elderly suicides. What makes it even more worrying is that, according to the Sunday Times, there has been a rise in the number of elderly diagnosed with mental health issues in recent decades. Beyond mental distress, mental illnesses like depression can also translate into adverse physical illnesses for the elderly, such as heart diseases or stroke. Much more can be done to help tackle the issue of elderly mental illness in Singapore. We will focus on depression as it is one of the most common mental illnesses among the elderly. This is where our campaign comes in. Time is Yours is a campaign on elderly empowerment. This campaign seeks to improve Singaporean elderly's state of mental well-being through elderly empowerment. How do we do this? In our formative research, we went on the ground and talked to several elderly. Through qualitative interviews, we understood more about the problem of mental illnesses among the elderly. We also gained insights about the elderly which would help shape our campaign. As mentioned earlier, we will use the idea of elderly empowerment to combat the problem of self-perceived ageism in the elderly, which will be elaborated on later. This includes treating the elderly as functioning adults with the ability to positively contribute to society, and not patronizing them through the use of language or actions. Bandura's self-efficacy theory will therefore be the theoretical framework in our effort to promote elderly empowerment. The focus is on appealing to the elderly's emotional states to test for changes in their self-efficacy judgments. We aim to arouse positive emotions in our message strategy by positioning aging as a positive experience, unlike previous unsuccessful campaigns which aroused negative emotions. By highlighting negative stereotypes towards aging, these campaigns reinforced negative stereotypes instead of subverting it. From our formative research, ageism, in particular self-perceived ageism, was a pertinent cause that led to depression among the elderly in Singapore. What's that, you might ask? Self-perceived ageism is when the elderly internalize negative stereotypes on aging. Studies have found that a negative outlook on life, compounded with a sense of limited agency in the aging process, could harm their mental health. The key insight we include in our messaging is that the elderly possess a very valuable resource unique to them: time. The main aim of the campaign, therefore, is to test whether introducing a new perspective of time to the elderly leads to changes in their self-efficacy levels and consequently, behaviour. Therefore, the impact objectives of this campaign would be to find out, firstly, what is the percentage change of self-efficacy among elderly in doing activities that give them a sense of fulfillment. This objective focuses on attitudinal change. Secondly, what is the percentage change in frequency of activities undertaken by the elderly that give them a sense of fulfillment? This next objective focuses on behavioural change. With that in mind, we came up with campaign collaterals across two media platforms the elderly use the most: newspapers and television. The common message across both collaterals is that the elderly possess a unique resource to them: time. Compared to students or working adults, the elderly are at a stage of their life where they can fully enjoy their free time. Elderly are then portrayed as making use of this free time to participate in different types of activities that give them fulfillment. Therefore, we hope to increase the elderly's self-efficacy judgments that they too can do likewise. Here's our newspaper advertisement. As you can see, the different images are depicted in a clockwise manner that is intuitive to our target audience as the chronological ticking of time. The elderly are portrayed as doing various things throughout the day. Time too serves as a call to action by adding a dimension of urgency. Furthermore, the joyful elderly illustrates our key benefit of fulfillment. Next, here's our exciting TVC. It opens with a granddaughter asking her Amma if she's happy. Amma then recalls to a particular day where a montage of memories show her engaging in different activities. The wide variety of activities include physical ones like Tai Chi and cycling, as well as mentally stimulating activities like photography and learning a new language. These activities are contrasted with cuts of the granddaughter only doing the same activity, studying. The contrast in fulfillment experienced illustrates the benefit of the abundance of time that Amma enjoys. Bringing it back to the present, the Ama states that she is happy. Her wink to the audience ends the TVC on a cheeky note. The last frame of the TVC illustrates our campaign message. Armed with our collaterals, we went to Kampong Admiralty in Toa Payoh to carry out our campaign. We managed to obtain 30 respondents who completed both the pre-test and post-test. After tabulating our results, we found that attitudinal change was achieved, but no significant behavioural change was achieved. For our attitudinal objective, our results show that there was a significant increase in the elderly's self-efficacy judgments in exercise and learning by 12.4% and 1.07% respectively. Linking it back to Bandura's self-efficacy theory, we have proven that the positive emotion-centered approach does increase self-efficacy judgments of the elderly in these dimensions. This may also explain why previous campaigns that raised negative emotions were unsuccessful. Interestingly, there is a stark difference in the percentage increase between exercise, a physical activity, and learning, a mentally stimulating activity. This suggests that arousing positive emotions has a greater effect on physical rather than mental activity. However, a positive emotion-centered strategy did not lead to any significant change in the dimensions of mobility and decision-making. This can be explored in further studies. How can marketers benefit from this increase? Generally, marketers who want to capture a new segment of the market, the elderly, can use this insight to do so. For example, marketers in the point-and-shoot camera industry can emphasize the free time the elderly have to pursue a new hobby like photography. Such framing of their advertisements may boost the elderly's self-efficacy in using cameras and may lead them to be more receptive in purchasing the cameras. How can other marketers benefit from this increase? Sports marketers in particular can use the positive emotion-centered strategy in their advertisements to appeal to the elderly. As it does increase the elderly's self-efficacy judgments, especially in the exercise dimension, arousing positive emotions may incline the elderly towards their products as the elderly feel that they can use it. For example, they can portray a happy-looking elderly using their products in their advertisement, rather than harping on endless details about product features and benefits. In terms of policy, we can use our findings to improve on the programming of existing initiatives. The Action Plan for Successful Aging is a current initiative widely pushed by the government, covering both physical and mental wellness. Based on the insights gathered from our campaign, policymakers can adopt different messaging strategies in their promotional efforts for physical and mental components under the Action Plan. For example, positive emotions can be used to appeal to elderly self-efficacy to take part in the more physical activities under the Action Plan. However, activities that are mentally stimulating may require an increase in other sources of self-efficacy to get the elderly to participate in, if policymakers want to increase elderly self-efficacy judgment in this area beyond 1%. Due to manpower and resource limitations, our campaign was unable to achieve significant behaviour change. Although there was a 1.2% increase in the frequency of activities undertaken by elderly that gives them fulfillment, this increase is not statistically significant at a 95% confidence level. This finding is in line with our expectations that significant behavioural change might not be observed due to the short duration of the campaign. Through the course of this campaign, we obtained many valuable insights. One important learning point has to do with the measuring of concepts. In our formative research, the elderly could not relate to the general self-efficacy skills that we used. We then contextualized our skills accordingly to measure the self-efficacy judgments of the elderly more accurately. This resulted in our skills becoming multidimensional, containing the two different dimensions of preference and the importance of self-belief. As such, the results obtained had a low reliability score, making it impossible to average out the scores for the different questions to obtain an average self-efficacy score. Hence, we broke down the composite scale for self-efficacy into its component dimensions. This meant that for our analysis, we could only look into domains of self-efficacy towards specific activities, rather than a comprehensive look at the concept as a whole. Our main takeaway is that when adapting scales, it is important to maintain a unidimensional track and focus on a single concept within an item. Reliability of the scale should not be compromised by aiming for breadth. Overall, the positive emotion-centered approach shows promising potential in targeting the elderly's self-efficacy, as we have witnessed significant changes and positive outcomes which future initiatives can leverage on. With better insights to shape good campaigns, let's combat ageism in Singapore today!